Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that touches the lives of many women, really understanding the complexities of female sexual desire and function.
That's right.
You shared Dr. Sandra Cabot's book, Increase Your Sex Drive Naturally, with us, and we've really dug into it to bring out the most important insights.
Yeah, we have.
Our goal is pretty straightforward. Give you, our listener, a clear and hopefully engaging exploration of all the factors, biological, emotional, lifestyle, that influence libido and sexual well-being.
Exactly. Offering practical knowledge, but, without drowning everyone in technical jargon.
Think of it as us sorting through the key ideas, maybe clearing up some common confusion.
And pinpointing the stuff that will really resonate if you're looking for understanding and, actual solutions.
Okay, let's jump in. Dr. Cabot starts by addressing some common ideas about how men and women might approach sex differently.
hmm
She brings up that familiar Mars and Venus concept, the idea that women are sometimes seen as more mental, maybe more in their thoughts during sex.
Right. While men are often perceived as being more focused on the physical side of things.
And what's interesting is how she connects this popular idea to her own clinical work.
Yeah, she notes that women often seek help for things like low libido or trouble with orgasm.
Whereas men coming to her, they tend to focus more on performance issues like erectile dysfunction.
So that difference in why people seek help kind of suggests there might be some, fundamental variations in how each sex experiences things.
And she even drills down to the basic biology, our chromosomes.
Uh-huh. The XX for women, XY for men.
Right. And she points out the X chromosome is significantly larger, carrying way more genes than the Y, like thousands compared to maybe 70 or so on the Y.
It sounds like a small difference
Mhm.
percentage-wise in the whole genome, maybe 1 or 2%.
But then she makes this really interesting comparison that's roughly the same genetic difference between humans and chimps. So these chromosomal differences, especially that gene-rich X chromosome women have, could actually play a role in some of these variations we see in sexual expression and concerns. Biology is definitely foundational.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving to the physical side, Dr. Cabot really stresses knowing your own anatomy, your erogenous zones.
Yeah, she makes a clear distinction between the vulva, that's the outer parts, labia, clitoris, vestibule,
And the vagina, the internal canal. Getting that basic anatomy clear is important.
and she puts a real emphasis on the clitoris.
Definitely, because the visible part, the glands, it's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
Right, it extends internally with a shaft and these root-like structures called crura. It's actually a much bigger organ than it looks.
And incredibly sensitive because of all the nerve endings packed in there.
She makes a key point here. Many women achieve orgasm mainly through clitoral stimulation.
Yeah, she says over half of women don't actually orgasm from vaginal intercourse alone. That's a huge number.
And blood flow is critical for this, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. For the clitoris to get engorged and super responsive during arousal, you need good circulation.
Which is why things that mess with blood flow, like diabetes, high blood pressure, even smoking.
Can unfortunately make it harder to achieve orgasm via the clitoris. It connects general health right back to sexual function.
That's a theme that comes up again and again in the book.
It really is. She also touches on the G-spot, that area people talk about on the front vaginal wall.
Ah, yes, the G-spot. Always a bit controversial, or at least debated.
Well, she acknowledges some women find it incredibly sensitive, but it's not universal. And anatomically, it might be related to the internal parts of the clitoris or other erectile tissues there.
So the takeaway is, don't worry if you haven't found a specific spot.
Exactly. She's clear that a fulfilling sex life doesn't depend on it. Then she moves on to orgasms themselves.
And emphasizes just how different the experience can be for different women.
Yes, the variability is totally normal. Like we said, over half don't orgasm just from intercourse. Plus, how easily it happens, what kind of stimulation works best, how often, how intense,
Yeah.
it varies
It's a
massively.
single right way.
None at all. And she references Masters and Johnson's classic 4 stages: excitement, plateau, orgasm, resolution.
Right, the physical changes like engorgement, lubrication.
But what's really fascinating is what happens neurochemically during orgasm.
Yeah.
She talks about that dopamine surge, the pleasure and reward chemical.
And oxytocin, the bonding hormone.
Giving that feeling of closeness and trust. She even mentions brain scans during orgasm, showing activity patterns kind of similar to drug highs, highlighting how powerful and rewarding it is naturally.
It really shows how much sex is driven by our brains and hormones, not just physical touch.
Totally, which leads us perfectly into the next big section, hormonal influences.
Yeah, this is huge. Dr. Cabot really emphasizes how the natural decline in sex hormones as women age profoundly impacts libido and sexual function.
It's so relevant for women going through perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah.
Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they all tend to decrease.
Menopause specifically means progesterone production pretty much stops and estrogen levels drop way down.
And that can lead directly to things like vaginal dryness,
Yeah.
thinning tissues, less clitoral sensitivity, all making sex less comfortable or desirable.
And even before full menopause, she says progesterone deficiency is common and can lower sex drive and affect mood.
Right, and testosterone often thought of as male, but vital for women's libido and energy too, that declines as well.
She uses this kind of memorable term for really low hormone levels, turnip's disease.
Laughs slightly.
Yeah!
Yeah, it paints a picture, doesn't it? Of feeling sort of lifeless, sexually speaking. It highlights how much these hormones contribute to vitality.
So what does she suggest? Bioidentical hormones.
Yes, exactly. Natural forms of progesterone, estrogen, testosterone that are identical to what our bodies make. They can come in creams, troches, patches, gels.
And she seems to favor creams and patches.
She does, because they get absorbed through the skin and bypass the liver initially. That might reduce some risks associated with oral hormones.
Okay. And she specifically mentions testosterone cream on the vulva.
Yeah, as being potentially really effective for boosting local sensitivity, the clitoral response, and libido directly.
But the key is personalization, right? Working with a doctor.
Absolutely essential. She stresses tailoring treatment based on individual needs, symptoms, and blood tests. It's not one size fits all.
She goes deeper into progesterone deficiency, too.
Okay?
Says it can affect mood, cause heavy periods, not just libido.
And she really pushes for natural progesterone over synthetic progestogens, which she says can sometimes make PMS worse or have unwanted side effects.
And then the cream application, again, bypassing the liver.
Seems to be her preferred route for progesterone absorption.
What about estrogen therapy?
Well, the benefits there are mainly improving the vaginal and vulvar tissues, making them thicker, more lubricated, more flexible, which obviously helps comfort.
Can it help libido, too?
It can, yes, and even nipple sensitivity. Again, creams and patches are suggested as safer than pills, often favoring low-dose estriol cream for long-term use.
But needs balancing with progesterone and monitoring levels.
Definitely. She cautions about risks with high doses or long-term potent estrogen, especially without progesterone balance.
Okay. And finally, testosterone for women.
She reiterates how crucial it is for libido. And again, the bioidentical testosterone cream, applied locally to the vulva, she sees as a safe and often very effective way to boost sensitivity and get blood levels into a healthy range.
How quickly might someone notice a difference?
Often within a couple of weeks, she says. Increased desire, better response. Again, she prefers this route over oral testosterone because of the liver processing issue.
Got it. So hormones are clearly a massive piece of the puzzle. But Dr. Cabot covers a lot of other factors too, right? Starting with stress.
Oh, absolutely. Stress is a big one. She talks about how many women are juggling so much work, family, caring for others.
A mental load.
Exactly. And that chronic stress just takes a toll on everything, including libido. It's a very real factor.
She also discusses the birth control pill, the OCP.
Yeah, this is interesting. She explains how the synthetic hormones in many pills can increase something called sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG.
And SHBG does what?
It basically grabs onto your natural sex hormones, especially testosterone, and makes them inactive.
Ah, so less active testosterone means potentially lower sex drive? And maybe dryness, too.
Precisely. It's a key consideration. She does note that progesterone-only pills might have less of this effect.
So if the pill seems to kill your libido, maybe explore other options.
That's what she suggests discussing with your doctor. And then there are other medications.
Right, antidepressants are often mentioned.
Yeah, they're a common culprit. Also some antipsychotics, some blood pressure meds, even cholesterol-lowering drugs can interfere with sex hormone production.
She mentions magnesium possibly helping with blood pressure and sexual function.
Yeah, possibly through effects on muscle relaxation and blood flow. Worth exploring, maybe.
Okay, what about vaginal health stuff? Odor infections.
She covers that. Bacterial vaginosis, or BV, can cause an odor that's, turn off. That's different from yeast infections, which are more about discharge and itching.
And her approaches?
Strengthening the immune system, diet, changes less sugar, less processed food. She also mentions some natural treatments like boric acid suppositories or tea tree oil douches as alternatives, but always best to check with a doctor first.
Right. She also covers other conditions that can get in the way.
Yeah, things like genital herpes, which can obviously impact things. Vaginismus, those involuntary muscle spasms making penetration painful or impossible.
Vulvodynia, too, that chronic vulvar pain.
Exactly. And UTIs, pelvic floor prolapse, even constipation, making things uncomfortable. For each, she offers insights and management strategies.
Like improving circulation to the vulva, she mentioned that earlier with blood flow.
Yep, crucial for arousal. Diabetes, smoking hinder it. She suggests things like magnesium, vitamin C, fish oil might help improve circulation generally.
It's a really thorough look at physical potential barriers. But she also talks a lot about the emotional side, right? The search for love and emotional well-being.
Oh, absolutely. This is where her holistic view really shines. She emphasizes how fundamental the need for connection and intimacy is.
And how self-esteem and self-acceptance are crucial for sexual well-being.
Totally.
Yeah.
If there are underlying emotional issues or problems in the relationship, that can absolutely manifest as low libido. Addressing those, sometimes with professional help, might be essential.
So it's not just biology. Our heads and hearts play a huge role.
A massive role. Okay, so let's move on to the practical tips she offers, starting with lubricants.
Seems basic, but important.
Very. Necessary if estrogen's low or with the pill or certain skin issues, but sometimes just needed anyway.
What kind does she recommend?
Natural oils like castor, olive, coconut oil are good options,
Yeah.
but avoid mineral oil with condoms. It damages latex.
Good tip. She distinguishes between lubes for sex and daily moisturizers, too.
Yeah, things like Replens are for ongoing moisture, not ideal during sex. And she flags a couple of ingredients in some lubes, like chlorhexidine, that might irritate sensitive skin.
Okay. What about gels for sensitivity?
She mentions L-arginine gels specifically. The idea is they increase blood flow to the clitoris, boosting arousal.
And supplements, herbs.
She acknowledges traditional uses for various herbs, but says effects are usually mild. She mentions one specific product, Femphase, but generally advises caution with dosage.
What about food? Any aphrodisiac foods she highlights?
Well, she lists things known for beneficial nutrients. Dark chocolate for mood, eggs for cholesterol, needed for hormones, oysters for dopamine and zinc.
Bananas, nuts, seeds, avocado, leafy greens. Sounds like a generally healthy diet.
Pretty much. Connecting nutrients to hormone production and circulation.
And then there's setting the mood.
Right, creating a sensual vibe. Candles, music, lingerie, if that's your thing. Massage oils, arousal gels for foreplay, and even a cocktail recipe. Basically reducing stress and getting creative.
But what really stands out is her emphasis on the mind.
Yes, she flat out says the greatest aphrodisiac is your mind. Positive thinking, confidence, focusing on pleasure.
Reading erotic stuff, thinking romantic thoughts, seduction, talking openly with your partner.
All crucial. It really reinforces that mental and emotional state drives desire so much.
She also mentioned sex therapy.
As a valuable resource if problems are rooted in emotional or psychological stuff.
Yeah.
Even hypnotherapy for inhibitions.
And finally, specific tests if libido is really low.
Yeah. Blood tests for testosterone, total and free,
Right.
SHBG, estrogen levels, especially postmenopause. Also checking thyroid function. And vaginal pH can give clues about estrogen and health down there.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, Dr. Cabot really gives a comprehensive look at female sexuality. It's multifaceted.
Definitely. We've hit on biology, anatomy, hormones, lifestyle, emotions, a whole range of factors.
And practical strategies, too.
We really hope that for you listening, something specific resonated. Maybe an aha moment about your own experience.
The goal was to empower you with knowledge, give you avenues for maybe exploring further or talking to your doctor.
So for you, the learner, think about what piqued your interest most. Was it the bioidentical hormones, the stress link, specific nutrients?
Use this as a starting point to dig deeper, maybe reread parts of the source or have those informed conversations.
And just a final thought from Dr. Cabot's perspective, she emphasizes that good sex is healthy, it's fun, it can add a whole new dimension of enjoyment to life.
So armed with maybe some new insights today, what's one small step you could take, starting now, to move towards that? Something to think about.